Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. I'll start with some satellite data here, and this is from sunup today till sundown. You'll see the sunset here at the very end of the animation. We've seen this deeper low that pulled out last night out of the Central Plains and the Northern Plains and is pushed into Minnesota, Iowa, and into Missouri with a pretty well-defined frontal squall line through here. Now this has moved through pretty quickly, and there's been some locally heavy rainfall, but overall this has moved through Iowa and Minnesota and Missouri quickly, not delivering widespread heavy rainfall amounts. All of that heavy rainfall has still been over here in the southeast to the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, and at times today throughout the eastern Corn Belt pushing up into Ontario. Now on the back side of this, do notice we do have quite a bit of smoke down here in Southern California at the end of the San Joaquin Valley, but there's some bigger pattern changes that we need to be discussing in this video as things kind of push forward here. Now behind this front, temperatures are really cooling down. Take a look at this. This is the last 24 hours of temperature change. So it compares to temperature now. I'm recording this right about 6:30 on Monday evening compared to 6:30 on Sunday evening. Some places here behind that front coming through are 20 to 30 degrees colder than normal. But out ahead of it, we're still keeping an eye late this afternoon, this evening on this region where there is a severe thunderstorm watch in this area for these storms to roll through. But as they move through, take a look at the eventual kind of shape of this system as it gets through. So we're going to start off at 7 p.m. here with our 18Z NAM run. And as we pull forward in this forecast, we see that the line breaks up in the overnight hours. And that's typical of these types of storm systems. But still, pockets of very heavy rain from Georgia and South Carolina right through the Tennessee and North Carolina border into Kentucky, right into this area. And that's an area we're going to get more rain coming. Ready? By 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning through mid-morning, the other front lines up with it. Do you see that? So that by the afternoon and evening, we're now bringing those showers and storms all along this area. And then what happens behind it is the wave, the upper level trough, is sitting right in through here by Tuesday evening. And it's going to curl up. See it curling up into parts of Kentucky, getting into Indiana and Ohio. This is getting through Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and evening. And that's when it finally pushes the front over to the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. More heavy rainfall on the backside. It's going to be a lot cooler air coming through behind this. But in Indiana and Ohio and Michigan with scattered storms to the southeast. And once that clears, we're going to have several drier days on the backside. In the tropics, we'd have two separate systems. We have Peter here and Rose. So we've kind of spent much of the day kind of joking around about this, having Pete Rose out in the middle of the open Atlantic. But there's going to be a problem, and it's going to be fronts like this one that are going to keep these systems, plus the position of the subtropical high, going to help keep these out over open ocean. And by the way, the front we're dealing with in the Midwest is right over here. Now, if you take a look at Peter is right now just barely into tropical storm status at 50 miles an hour, and so is Rose at 40. And then behind it, we need to keep a close eye on this tropical disturbance, which doesn't have a name yet, but has an 80% chance of development. And the reason why is because we expect Peter to make that turn. We expect Rose to stay out in open ocean. But the last wave that came off here, should it develop, we need to keep an eye on it once it gets over here toward the Lesser Antilles. Given this frequency of fronts moving across the United States, the likelihood of another one of those driving the system away is relatively high. Now, I'm going to take you to the other ocean. We just looked at the Atlantic. Let's go over to the Pacific and see the main story here. There's a trough here, a trough in the Gulf of Alaska, a ridge over the west, and here's the trough that's coming through the Midwest today. Watch out for these two and what they're going to be doing here as they make their way across the United States. Let me show you what I'm talking about. At the end of the next 10 days, the pattern looks quite similar to where it's going to begin. A developing ridge with trough on the east coast and a trough up the west, right? Now watch how we got there. Here's the first trough moving through tonight into tomorrow morning. And it sweeps through and cuts off over the Ohio River where it meets the Mississippi and then moves right here straight through Michigan. Now, while it's doing that, behind it, that other wave I told you to watch over Alaska has now made it through parts of Saskatchewan. And it's going to help, because remember the flow around these is like this, it's going to help take this closed circulation and keep moving it farther to the north. And that's going to reinforce another trough of cold air to come in here this weekend. Meanwhile, a large ridge builds off to the west, while there's potentially a little cutoff low off of California. So here we are out to next Saturday, and playing this on forward, that seems to be the way the pattern is being favored. There's a ridge here, big ridge over Greenland, another one that's kind of trying to form, it's kind of a weird position from Scandinavia to Russia, but lots of troughs coming out of this side of the Arctic across Alaska. My drawings get a little messy here, but that's the big picture. So what does this all do to our precip? Let's get a good picture of what we've had so far before we get into that. So this is month-to-date precipitation by rank. So we just had the line move through Iowa. We're going to see a lot more rainfall. Let's draw that again. A lot more rainfall in this area once we press through. And that's also going to include, I guess I should spread that out a bit farther to the south and east. So we're going to see some big changes there. If we take a look at this, this would be today's 12Z WPC run. Notice that from the Carolinas through the Ohio River Valley into parts of Ontario, this section right in through here could get 1 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain before this is all said and done. But we are drying out behind this pretty quickly. Let's do a bit of a multi-model analysis, and let's go from the WPC to the European model. And you notice it's practically got the same outlook on precipitation, and that is also being shared with the GFS. So between the WPC, the European, and the GFS, we've got a pretty solid story about what's happening with this pattern going back to a ridge in the west and a trough digging over the east. So we can then take that and add a couple of other components to it. I'll show you the GFS winds on this one. With each of these systems coming through, we're going to get some pretty gusty winds. And if I just take this out through next week, this is maximum accumulated wind gust. Notice in the plains to the eastern Corn Belt into Ontario, we're talking about having a few days here with gusts that get above 40, maybe 50 miles an hour. Now that's not with storms, that's just with the what we call the synoptic scale winds. We got strong winds in Northern California now and really strong winds offshore. Oh, and by the way, this is just kind of fun. If I let this keep going out, you see that what possibly could be some tropical system here, look what happens. It gets diverted again away from the U.S. Now, this is the GFS way out here in what we call La La Land, but I'm looking more for the pattern than anything else. So that's winds. Let's now go back and talk temperature or precip, and I'm going to go ahead and use the European model for this. So we've seen through Tuesday into Wednesday. Let's get out there toward Thursday. At this point, there's our low. You're going to watch it go straight to the north, and you're going to see another low coming out of Canada behind it. Ready? So as we go forward here, this is Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. Now getting out there to Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. So there's the second low kind of pulling around, curling around. The first one's like this, and there's the associated front coming through the northeast. Could be a narrow band of showers that moves through here at the end of this week, as you see. After that, though, that pulls off into the northeast. And if I just let this play on out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that's 240 hours of forecast. You keep seeing the troughs developing in the northeast and the unsettled weather, but almost everywhere else we're going to go over to a drier pattern. That's the big story. By day 10, you still see the same thing, the trough in the west, a trough in the east, and a large ridge building into the mid part of the United States. And it seems to be some downstream blocking in these areas. The net effect of that is to give us a drier pattern here. But with those troughs advancing a little bit farther to the east, we did see in the 12Z run an increased chance of precipitation from Northern California through coastal Oregon and Washington, which is good. We want to see that continue. Let's flip over and have a discussion about temperatures, and we'll wrap this one up. This is the month-to-date temperature ranks. And if we take a look at where we've had frost so far, anywhere that you see color or shading on this map, according to the RTMA data, has already had a temperature below freezing. Now, in the near term, I'm not overly concerned about frost outside of the mountains, right into here where we have frost advisories, freeze warnings, and freeze watches in place. So if we go take a look at those high temperatures, it's just going to change a lot. Ready? This was today's highs. There's the front that comes through and clears things out. The west, rebounds with temperatures, while Indianapolis, we might get a high of 61, And then as we play this forward from Wednesday into Thursday, that cooler air moves east by Friday. Get a quick rebound here on Friday in the midsection of the country. But then there's going to be another shot at cooler air coming in over the weekend. Now, it's those minimum temperatures we've got to keep an eye on. So let's go into Tuesday morning. That's where we're going to watch the mountains. Going into Wednesday morning, 40s, clearing out the midsection of the country for overnight lows. Thursday, that progresses east. But look at the warm-up already coming back to the northwest. That's why we don't see in this whole area a risk of frost. I'm going to be watching Saturday morning here. This is an area, central Wisconsin, that often frosts before any of the surrounding areas. We're going to keep an eye on it right in through there. And again, on Sunday morning. Watch this with me at the end of this week, okay? Day 5 through 10 pattern, let's shrink that up so you can see it. Again, favors that western ridge, eastern trough, and we have a trough in the Gulf of Alaska. That's that same pattern, and it wants to hang on all the way out there to day 10 through 15. So we start October with warm anomalies in this area. That's the shape of this pattern right now. Longer range, we'll finish this up. The European model kicks the can down the road. For the whole of October, it's favoring what we've got now. Drier east, better onshore flow in the west, possibly wetter there. But I'll say this, I've looked at every teleconnection, I've looked at the MJO, I've looked at momentum, I've looked at all of it. The model is just favoring persistence at this point from week 2, which means I don't think we have a solid handle on what October is going to look like yet. I can definitely tell you that the temperature pattern is not just going to be warm for everybody all the time. The model picks up on that bias, but remember, it's October. There will be fronts. The temperature gets knocked back, it climbs back up. Knocked back, climb back up. That's October across the United States. To finish, the big picture long-range stuff narrows down to what's going on with our La Nina. The Southern Oscillation Index, which is a gauge of how strong those trade winds are, allowing that colder water to surface, it continues to climb. It's back up here to a value of 10. Needs to be above 7 to be considered La Nina. And just a reminder, in October and November, La Ninas favor wetter conditions in the northwest and a drier overall harvest for a big section of the country. All right, that's what we've got here on a short forecast. I'll talk to you again on Thursday. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Thanks.